So, Joanne, I wanted to ask you about this idea of the breath. I've been in so many classes now with you, and you talk about the breath probably more than any teacher I've ever worked with. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about how is breathing, and of course, like we're always breathing, but how is breathing in this on purpose, conscious way? How does that actually make a difference for us as human beings?
Well, Dr. Jen, the first thing is I say all the time the breath is the bridge of consciousness that connects us to us. And the breath is something that we have. We don't ever have to borrow it, buy it, or rent it. It is there for us to tap into always. And thirdly, it's what keeps us alive, right? If we don't have the breath, none of us would be here. So, the power of the breath to me in our practice is so important because it keeps us conscious, it keeps us present, it keeps us in the now, and it has a direct effect on the central nervous system.
Mm, so well said. And I liked what you said that like we always have it with us. And I also know is that when we get anxious, we tend to breathe in a very shallow way. And it makes sense, right? It's like fight or flight when we're feeling like, oh my gosh, like our something in our lives is stressing us out. I even noticed for myself, I have to be really conscious where I can sometimes hold the breath. So I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit more about a practice that could make a difference and that we could use at any point whenever we're feeling stressed, and as a practice to begin to use a certain breathing technique that could ground us, that can lower the anxiety, that can actually have us start feeling better within our body and also emotionally.
So, in yoga practice, we use a breath called Ujjayi. It's translated as victorious breath. It is a elongated, symmetrical, and full and complete breath, as opposed to if any of you have ever noticed your breathing pattern, very typically it's short. We breathe in and out of the mouth, we pant.
Mm.
All of those styles of breath, it's not that they don't work, they do work because you're breathing, but it doesn't have a direct correlation and impact on our central nervous system. To what you were saying, Dr. Jen, this particular breath affects the ability to either keep our central nervous system in fight or flight, like deer in headlights, like where you freeze and you go, or when you trigger the Ujjayi breath, and I'll show it in a second, that you have the ability to tell your brain and your nervous system that I'm not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. I got cut off on the highway by a horrible driver and it made me stop my breath. But the brain doesn't know the difference between the two.
Mhm.
And the only way that you can start to change that pattern is to utilize this breath. So, this breath is done in and out of the nose, your mouth is closed, and you're scraping the breath at the back of the throat, or also known as narrowing the epiglottis muscle. So, some people describe it as the same action as if you were snoring, holding a seashell. So, the sound of a seashell, that big conch shell at your ear, that echoey sound. And the last example that people compare it to is the sound that Darth Vader makes. So, the way that I'll teach it is you put your hand in front of your mouth as if you had sunglasses. And the first variation is you purse your lips and you blow into your hand. And most of you probably will have noticed cool air. We're going to change it. We're going to narrow the throat muscle and we will still keep our mouth open and we'll blow the air to our palm and we'll do this. Most of you have noticed the difference of the sound and also the temperature of the breath. It's warmer when you do the ha sound. The hard thing now is without your hand, you close your mouth and you breathe with the narrowing of the throat muscle. I'm going to do it because it is challenging on the inhale to breathe like this. And on the exhale, I'm going to take that sound but keep my mouth closed. So it's going to sound like this. I'll do one round of the in and out breath, narrowing the throat muscle so you can hear it. Just compare that with you may have already observed that my first breath, the Ujjayi breath, was longer, deeper, and almost a little narrower as opposed to the second breath, which again, nothing wrong with it. For me as a teacher, I just want you to be conscious of your breath. But if you want a direct impact on your nervous system, you'll start to practice Ujjayi breath.
Great. So, Joanne, for people who have heard of this breath and perhaps have done it on their yoga mat or in a class, is this a breath you can use off of your mat, like in your daily life? And how would you encourage people to start practicing that breath? And then maybe what we could also do together with those watching this right now is we could also just maybe close our eyes in a second and take a minute and do a little Ujjayi breath so they can actually practice and see what it feels like in their bodies. But how do you do that off the mat?
I think the key is to start to learn it on the mat, right? Where we're specifically using it because we forget. We're humans. It's natural. Most people ask me, do you breathe like that all the time? And I say, after 25 years of yoga, I do breathe like that all the time. I'm very conscious of it, but that's after 25 years plus of yoga. So my suggestion would be if you remember it, great. If you remember, great. Whatever aspect of it you remember, especially when you get triggered, if you get stressed, if you notice that something angers you. Power of the pause, we talk about that a lot. Stop. And if it's Ujjayi breath you come to, great. If it's only half that breath you come to, great. But we can absolutely take this time to take, let's call it 3 conscious breaths in and breaths out. So if you want to just sit and listen, I'll close my eyes. And if you know it, by all means, feel free to join me. But if you want to just sit and listen, that's absolutely fine too, because sometimes for those of us that are audible learners, it's easier to just sit and listen than to actually just do it first.
Okay, that sounds great. So I'm going to keep my eyes open, and after you're done doing the rounds, then we'll close it out. So just when you open your eyes, I'll know that will complete.
Perfect.
Okay. Beautiful. How do you feel right now, Joanne, after doing that?
My observation is my second one, it was progressive. So for those of us that have like an expectation that we should get it right away, it doesn't happen right away. By my third one, I felt it going a little smoother and it was definitely a little bit longer. And then when I opened my eyes, I actually was a little dizzy for a second because there was so much consciousness in taking in more oxygen on the breath in. So physiologically, the inhale takes in oxygen and the exhale releases carbon dioxide. So I did feel like a little spacey when I opened my eyes, a little, dizzy. So I probably, if that happened to you, would suggest that you drop your chin to your chest and you blink your eyes a couple of times. So if that happened to you, do that. I had to go into conversation, so it was a little like
You had to transition quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we're going to invite all of you who hopefully practice that. If you didn't have a chance to practice it, watch this video again and actually practice it with Joanne. And then what we're going to ask you to do is practice it during the week, because it will make a difference for you. And as Joanne said, we always have the breath. And if we're being conscious with how we're breathing, we can shift something in just a few moments with the breath. That's how powerful of a tool this is.